good job of speaking. I wish he'd just do it all. Anyway, I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route for the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We express our gratitude and our respect for the land that we use, and we pledge to try and end systemic racism and commit to advancing reconciliation by partnering with our Indigenous peoples in our work within our school at Roadways Literacy Academy. So, I'm Sheila Erickson, and I'm a teacher, and have been for a little while. And through the years, I picked up on a few key happenings around schools. So first of all, Mondays are rough days. The kids come back from fun weekends, and they've been to hockey tournaments and sleepovers and all kinds of things, and then they find themselves at school where work is hard. Mondays are hard. Fridays, on the other hand, are chaotic. Fridays are the day that they're looking forward to that weekend again. And so, Wednesdays are wonderful. And I had sort of decided that in my school I wanted every day to be a Wednesday. But I changed it a little bit to make it be my mantra. Every day is going to be a Wednesday. And it's uncanny to me, when we started planning this golf tournament, we wanted it to be Thursday, August 25th, but we were told the only day available was Wednesday, August 24th. So what a Wednesday it's been. Another thing I learned was to surround yourself with positive people. And when I look out at this gathering tonight, there's such positivity. So, I see many families here tonight that come to our Roadways school, bring their children. They support us, they are committed to our project, they're so positive. I have my table of teachers at the back. You couldn't get a more positive group. And I have family here tonight too. My two daughters and their husbands are here tonight with us. My niece, my nephew are here with us, and of course my husband, Steve. And what about all those golfers? How positive are they? I know. All of those people took the day off work to come golfing for our school. How positive is that? Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about our Roadways Literacy Academy. So the majority of our kids come to us with a diagnosis of dyslexia. And dyslexia will affect about 20% of our population. And 10% of that group, it affects to the point where school becomes very, very hard for those kids. Now, it isn't a condition that affects their cognition. They're smart. Many of them are just like little walking encyclopedias. So much knowledge in their heads, but they have trouble reading and writing. And when you think about that in the society we live in today, that's such a knowledge economy, where our currency is good literacy skills, reading and writing. You know how important I feel our job is to help those kids learn to read and write. So, my story. In 2014, I retired for the third time. I can just see my daughters shaking their heads. I have to tell you, retirement parties are fun. Anyway, I had just completed my contract with Saskatoon Public Schools, and at that time I had been working as a resource room teacher and a consultant, helping other resource room teachers set up programs for struggling readers. And it was literally June 30th, packing up my boxes, trying to clean out my room, and a family appeared at my classroom door. And so I invited them in. It was a dad, his wife, their daughter who had just finished grade 5 and was looking forward to grade 6, and their little blonde-haired boy who had just finished grade 2. So they came in. It was quite an interesting conversation because Mom and Dad were speaking in code. There was no way they could let this little boy know that they were really there to ask me if I would tutor this little guy through the summer. But by and by the message came across and I agreed to take this little guy on. His name was Zach, and within a week he was coming to see me 2 times a week in my home for the summer. So Zach couldn't write his name. However, he was a smart little guy. He had intuition like you've never seen before. So down in my basement where we did all our teaching, I had some old things, a collector. I had a old Singer treadle sewing machine in a beautiful wooden case. And I had garden doors that I'd lugged all over the country with me that came from my family home in southern Saskatchewan. And a sideboard that belonged to my mother-in-law, old things. And Zach was so taken on by these pieces of furniture, and he always wanted me to tell him the stories that were inside that furniture. And you know, when you think about it, what other grade 2 student has that kind of a feeling? So he understood the importance of those things. He was such a bright guy. Anyway, reading wasn't on his agenda for that summer, and I had lots of things that I had to learn in order to work with him. He was a handful. Pictures, if you can see the monitors, that's my Zach. Finally, I was forced to learn a new language, and you would know it as the language of Pokemon. So I bought many packages of Pokemon, and so did his family. And between the 2 of us, we learned Pokemon that summer. And he also learned his letters. And my grandsons were very proud of me. We had lots of good Pokemon battles throughout this summer, and by the end of the summer, we made his dad cry. Almost makes me cry. He could finally write his name. You have to see this name, Zach Harasimchuk. Is it any wonder he couldn't write his name? Anyway, Zach's dad was so proud of him and so pleased with the progress that we made that he not only paid for Zach to come for tutoring for the whole next year, he paid for 2 more students to come. So that was the beginning of Roadways. And by the end of that first year, I had hired a new teacher to work with me. We had 6 kids in our school. And by the time 2018 came around, we had 22 kids in my basement school. And we just knew we were bursting at the seams. It was time to find another place. And thanks to the generosity of Gordon Maureen Haddock, sitting at my table with me tonight, they were grandparents to one of our students, Odin, and they offered us their warehouse space free. We didn't pay a thing for it the whole time we stayed there. We moved into that school with our 22 kids, and by then 9 teachers. We used every little nook and cranny to make it a teaching space. And we stayed there for about a year and a half, and by then we were bursting our seams again. And so I also had the government breathing down my neck. And I received a call telling me that, did I know we could only have 7 students before we had to register our school? And so I decided it was time to start following rules. And we became a registered independent private school last September. And yeah. Now we provide a full Saskatchewan curriculum to kids from grade 1 to grade 10. All of our kids, yeah, very special kids. When they come to school now in September, we have a staff of 15 people, and we'll have 20 or more full-time kids, but then kids come off and on all day long for literacy help, some for math help, and all together we'll start out with very close to 60 kids. So 15 teachers, or 15 staff members, that includes myself and admin assistant, and then we have one really special volunteer, my husband, and mainly because he does anything I ask him to do. Just before I turn it over to Faisal, I also want to thank those kids from our school today that were out selling lemonade and offering to do drives for golfers. Thank you very much, kids.